Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce. To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. It's a little bit noisy here. I'm actually sitting in Whole Foods so that I could get the chat room open today. Today is Memorial Day 166. And it's also a special day. Today is 11/11/11. So that's pretty awesome. And, Michael, I'm not going to talk a lot because it is noisy in here, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Our calling number, though, first is 646-200-4169. Well, I'm not sure if Michael's on there yet or not.
Oh, excuse me. I had my mute button pushed. I am here. Welcome, everybody. Life on the road and technology is so much fun. But anyway, we are in Celebration, Florida, getting ready to go to St. Petersburg. If you're interested in catching some of our workshops live, starting Sunday, we'll be starting with Why Is This Happening to Me Again after we do the services at Unity in St. Petersburg, Unity campus downtown. We'll be doing 5 days of free workshops, and then after 2 weeks off, we'll be down in South Florida in Boca and in Pompano, so there's a schedule there. We'll be back over in Tampa. We'll be in Fort Lauderdale the first of the year. We're heading to St. Louis at Christmas. We have another celebration coming. My daughter Krista, for those who might know her, is planning to have her first child. She claims it'll be her only one, but her first child on the 21st of December. So we're going to be up in the St. Louis area. In any event, celebration of Memorial Day, and today, being 11/11, doubles our commitment to be responsible for ending war on planet Earth. We're not going to end war by marching. We're not going to end war by fighting for peace. We're not going to end war by killing all the bad guys because, of course, killers become the bad guys themselves. How are we going to end war? You and I are going to individually, collectively, be responsible for every form of hostility or fear that we have the capacity to feel. And then we're going to apply forgiveness to that capacity, to remove it, to get rid of it, to dump it, to be done with the world of hostility and fear. We're going to, together and individually, collectively, reclaim our human lives, reclaim the active presence of love that every human being is. And when enough of us stop playing the game of, I'm only upset because of what somebody else did, and recognize that I'm upset because in me I have the capacity for upset, and I'm ready to forgive. I'm ready to remove that capacity. Forgiveness has nothing to do with letting somebody else off the hook because you have the capacity to be in rage, in pain, in grief, in hatred, in vengeance, or any of the rest. Criticism, condemnation, gossip, and slander. Forgiving somebody else, letting somebody else off the hook because you have that capacity has nothing to do with actual forgiveness. We've been conned. We've been lied to. We've been sold a Trojan horse. So we've got something different to sell, and here's what we're selling. And by the way, what we're selling is free. We have this technology available on our website. If you don't understand what I'm talking about when I speak about forgiveness, please go to www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. And as you click on that link, you'll see 5 links Well, actually, there are dozens of links under that section, but in particular, there are 5 links that have to do with forgiveness for a starting point in the forgiveness process. The first link will give you a new chapter 24 of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And, of course, this is all free. The second link is a 7-step, the latest reality management worksheet. The third link is an awesome radio show that we did with a young lady a couple of months ago she did one of the most awesome forgiveness processes I've ever seen anybody do, and we've got that recorded live because she was brave enough to come and do it on our radio show. The fourth link is another brave gentleman named Richard who jumped in, and he goes through a forgiveness worksheet. So you've got 2 sample worksheets. If you want to know how to do the process, you don't have to talk to me about it. You don't have to talk to Jeannie about it. You can do that all on your own. It's right there. The 5th link, by the way, for those who proclaim I have no work to do, there's a list of suggestions. And if you really, truly go through that list and you have no work to do, then I want to touch the hem of your garment. Otherwise, I want to support you in forgiveness. And you are most welcome to pick up the phone, call the radio show, and interact with us, and we will absolutely support you, freely support you in learning forgiveness. We're delighted to be here, to be of that support. So our invitation for Memorial Day, and again, redoubling it with today being 11/11, we're inviting you today, every day, look at one issue, one situation where you have some form of hostility or fear, and apply forgiveness to remove your capacity for that hostility and fear. You'll be doing forgiveness work. You'll be changing the planet. And so that's what we're here to do. So, Jeannie, do we have any callers? Is David or is Dr. Tim with us? I know Tim was going to be tied up today, but maybe something changed.
No, Tim is not on the chat room or on the switchboard, either one, and neither is David. And there's nothing going on. Everybody's just kind of sitting and listening. And I did get an email from a young lady that we had asked her yesterday if she would call in today because she said that, well, I'll read her email. I can't get on the radio show today because I have painting contractors coming to my door all day long giving me bids on painting that needs to be done before I lay the carpet on Wednesday. This is also I can sell my house better and faster. I felt hurt by your emails, and so I did a worksheet on it. But I didn't understand the part about asking God to help you heal and release the hurt. That's why I called in yesterday. Insight came last night that maybe I should try disidentifying with my ego, and also maybe I should just sit with the hurt like a good mom comforts her hurting child. I tried both, and I got the shift that I was looking for. So she's not going to be calling in, but perhaps you could address it. I had responded to some of her emails, and she was wanting us to decisions for, and I put it back on her and said that she had to make the decisions. And I also gave her several ideas for some worksheets. And she said that I hurt her, or she felt hurt by my email. So perhaps she'll address that, and then she can click back in and listen to it later.
Cool. Well, you know, the game of projection is rampant in our culture. And when you look at someone who lives a life that's nothing but trauma and hurt, and every time they are in hurt again, they want to blame whoever's triggered that hurt for them, that person is never going to heal. When we choose to be responsible, gee, you know, you gave me the look and that brought hurt up for me is a totally different statement and will allow my mind to show me totally different things than the statement that says, you hurt me. When I say you hurt me, my reality is based upon my words. So when I say you hurt me, here's what I'm saying to my unconscious mind. Mind, go to my file on them and show me that they caused my hurt. Now I will hallucinate a whole world where everybody else is responsible for my hurt, and here I am, the innocent victim. Look what they've done to me. Now that's one way of going about it, and that will leave you in victimhood all of your days. If you choose to change that, a simple change in language and goals changes everything. Because when I say, you know, I'm hurting over what you just said, you just brought up pain in me that I know is mine, that I know I need to heal, and I would appreciate your support in healing that. Once I change my language, I've said to my unconscious mind, okay, mind, Show me the truth. I'm responsible for my hurt. I've been doing this all my life and blaming everybody else forever. It's time for me to get over the BS. It's time for me to get done with it. It's time for me to grow up and become an adult. I am responsible for my hurt. I caused my pain. I decide upon what I will feel. And if my decision has become unconscious, it seems automatic, and therefore I could blame it on everybody else. So now I'm ready to stop. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to look inside myself. And I'm going to be responsible for my hurt. And then I'm going to take this awesome tool called forgiveness, reality management. See, hurt is a reality in the mind. And when I take this tool called forgiveness, and let's look at this particular situation. So if it were Jeannie that were my object of attention, number 1A would be Jeannie. And then I put my initials in as a reminder that this is about me. And then the situation is Jeannie sent me an email that reminded me of my responsibility, and thinking about being responsible brought up hurt for me. How do I feel? Well, obviously hurt. What's my thought? Everybody's always all over me and blaming me. That might be an example. So then the next step would be I'm willing to go through the symptoms of healing. I am willing to love truth enough to see my part in this thing. And so then the next step, step 3, is I'm going to look at what's the goal I had for Jeannie. Well, Jeannie shared a little bit about what those emails were about, and so the goal for Jeannie might be I want Jeannie to make my decisions for me instead of invite me to be responsible. So that might be the goal in that situation. Now, there might be many goals around this situation, but that would be one that you could do. So that would be step 3. I want Jeannie to make my decisions for me and not hold me accountable. So number 4 is I'm going to go back and reconnect. I'm going to remember when I held my newborn and what an awesome presence of love they are. And I'm going to reconnect to that awesome presence of love that I am. Then in step 5, I'm going to bring my goal from number 3 down to number 5, and I'm going to collapse the projection that Jeannie hurt me by her email, and I'm going to recognize that I was hurt by what goes on inside of me. I have a capacity for this kind of hurt that I'm willing to work through. And so I'm going to bring my goal from number 3 down to step number 5, and I'm going to cancel my goal for Jeannie to make my decisions for me and not hold me accountable. So that's going to be number 5. Then I'm going to breathe, and that's 5A, and then 5B. You know, this hurt stuff and blaming everybody else has been going on for so long with so many people. Sooner or later, I've got to get finished with it. But gee, if I think about and I remember how my mom was such a victim, and I heard about how my grandmother was a victim and her mother was a victim, gee, this has been going on so long, I don't know how I could ever reach in deep enough to clean all of this up. So that step is where in number 5B, you invite that higher power in. In Aramaic, that higher power was referred to as Ruka de Kudsha. Ruka de Kudsha are the words that have been translated from the Aramaic, out of the Aramaic scriptures, as the Holy Spirit, but there's nothing there about a disembodied spirit being. What it speaks of is there is this awesome force inside of me. It's an actual elemental force that if I invite it into activity, will reach into the depths of my genetic toes and to the limit of my willingness start to undo those realities of hurt. And so I'm going to invite that power to go to work in me. Step number 6, how do I feel as I cancel the goal? I invite that power to go to work. Well, it might be, I'm feeling a little bit of relief. And what's number 5 or number 6, be? What's this situation looking like now? Well, I'm starting to suspect that maybe Jeannie didn't hurt me with an email. Maybe the email was just the trigger for my hurt. So I'm willing to go to the next level and start to undo my capacity to be hurt. Then number 7, you want to make sure in step 7 that you always plug in another goal. And so that that goal might look like in the future. I'm going to communicate lovingly, gently, and with respect with Jeannie, and when she gives me input, I'm going to be responsible for how I feel about that input because I've asked for that input. I need that input. I need that input desperately if I'm going to overcome this life of pain. And so I'm going to receive her input lovingly, gently, and respectfully. So that would be, in that situation, a worksheet. And that's how the process goes. Now, one of the big questions that usually comes up is, in step number 5, this is a reasonable goal for somebody to refrain from holding me accountable. I don't want to be held accountable. I want to keep being able to blame. Whatever my goal might be, I want to look at a new goal. I've canceled that goal. I've let go of that goal. I need to look at that new goal and be willing to refrain from goals that I hold for other people that keep me in the cycle of my pain. And so I cancel the goal not because there's anything wrong with the goal, but because the goal accesses my capacity for pain every time I load it in my mind. If I load a goal that resonates hostility and fear in me, let's use an example. I'm walking down the street. I'm in New York City. I'm walking down the street. I walk by 10,000 people. I have no goals for any of those people. I'm in an awesome, fun state. It's a beautiful, sunny day in New York. I'm, walking right past Times Square, and in the last 45 minutes, I've passed 10,000 people, and I've just been chipper and in the breeze. I've been at it and wonderful. And all of a sudden, out of the crowd crystallizes a face, and it's the face of the person who 10 years ago ripped me off for $100,000. Now, all of a sudden, being in my chipper, alive, excited state, I'm enraged because I want this person to give me back my $100,000, and I'm really suffering for a lack of that money. Now, am I in pain because that person didn't give me the $100,000 10 years ago? No, this is 10 years later. Well, what kind of craziness is that? Why am I in pain when I see this person's face? Because I have the capacity for all this rage and fear and pain around the loss of that money, and the sight of their face reactivates a goal. When I cancel that goal, I collapse that goal. I collapse the painful reality. And then I get a chance to start to do the work inside of me that needs to be done. Now, that doesn't mean that this person, maybe I've been trying, I've had a detective chasing them for 10 years and trying to find them. That doesn't mean that I don't, in my centered, connected space, follow them and find out where their office is. As they walk into their office, get their address, and take it to my attorney, and then ask my attorney to write them a letter and let them know that there'll be a lawsuit following to hold them accountable for the $100,000. Two totally separate issues. What most people do is they take their internal realities and they hook them up to their brain's image of what's happening outside, and they think that what's going on inside of them has to do with the outside, and now they're disempowered to change that painful part of themselves. So if I'm in rage and grief and fear and anger and pain over something, the something isn't the problem. The rage, the grief, the anger, the fear, and the pain is the problem. First order of business, clean that up. Then, second order of business, yes, there's a problem out there. Somebody owes me $100,000. They've been running away. So now, in a connected space where I maintain my human life, the active presence of love, for that person as well as for myself, I now do whatever is accountable. I'll have the most intelligent mind possible to do whatever it's going to take to hold that person accountable for the money that they owe me. So now I've handled both aspects of the situation that needs to be handled. And that's the bottom line of the idea of this work, is to recognize what's inside is inside and it's all changeable. And to recognize that what's outside is outside. And I can take whatever action I need to, but I don't want to sacrifice or give up my human life, that awesome presence of love that I am, for the rage and fear that my generations have taught me. And as I do that, everything starts to shift. Jeannie, are there any questions on the phone, or any thoughts going on in the chat room?
We do have a caller, and it's area code 517, which I think is Michigan.
Hey there, Michigan. Is this Rex?
Sure is. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, I'm blessed, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, Jeannie.
I'm sitting in a Whole Foods store. Actually, I'm outside in a cool breeze. It's a little chilly. It's probably about 60 degrees here today, but probably better than Michigan's doing right now, right?
We actually got snow yesterday.
Snow? You know,
yeah.
Rex, did you know that humans aren't designed to live in snow? Did you know that?
We're designed to live in snow?
We're not designed to live in snow. No. Humans aren't supposed to be in that stuff.
Oh,
it's just not natural.
It's true. I know that, and I hear all the workshops you're doing down in Florida. I'm thinking, Cal, maybe he's got something here. So, yeah, and I wanted to mention something. You're talking about pain, and obviously that's, I love what you say, is that pain is designed to make our ears grow. And, a month ago or 2 months ago now, you introduced me to Dr. Sarno, so I've been studying a lot of his work, and he's very, very connected to the understanding of what we're teaching and what your whole message is. And when you went through your worksheet and was identifying pain, and as even before that I put my I put my number in there, I put the 1 and raised my hand, and then you just went through and talked all about it. And what I've been finding with my clients and also with myself and with, my partner in my world is that when in relationship to this tension myositis syndrome, which is just a name for the same thing, we create pain in our body to distract from a deeper seated repressed or suppressed emotion, which generally is around hostility or fear. I mean, very simple. It's the same message you were giving. And what I've been observing as people, including myself, start putting their attention to the pain and identifying that pain, and this is another form that it works well as well. It's another way of looking at the goal and changing it. But what Dr. Sarno recommends, and it really works well, is to identify the pain and say, okay, pain, this is something that is, okay. And I would like your advice on this, because one of the words that we're using is this is not physiological. So what it is, it's emotional. So what I say is this is related to emotional pain, and I am willing to experience my emotional pain, and I'm willing to experience my fear and my hostility. And what will happen, and then you talk specifically to the part of us we call the brain, and tell it that the directive that it's been given to distract me from what I'm really feeling and what I'm afraid of feeling is I'm changing this directive, and I'm directing you to stop it. And the brain just goes, burp. And it's really interesting to watch, because the pain, which might have been in my left ear, moves to my right ear. And then I do the same methodology, and it tries moving around. And as soon as it starts moving around, it's easy to understand that it's a manufactured pain that is designed to distract me or protect me, apparently, by early directives. When you're really young, we learn that as children. And then it causes the physiology to contract, hold oxygen from the area, and produces pain. So it's just fascinating, because when you apply what you're talking about and what we do in our forgiveness work to the same thing, it's just a slightly different languaging, and it causes such a different, not different, but it causes a very similar response. And that is that it changes the pain. And once the pain, what I've observed is, if I go to the cause, or closer to the cause, the part that I'm really trying to avoid, and I know you can hear all of our work together that you're doing, that you've taught me and that we teach, is in this languaging, is when we go to the more of the cause, and then we apply the tools of the breath and the forgiveness and the techniques that work, the pain just disappears. And it's amazing.
And one of the things to be aware of, when you talk about the contraction, as Sarno talks about contraction, the contraction is caused by the holding of the breath. That's why the still breath is such an important and powerful piece in the puzzle. Because the minute that we hold the breath where we don't want to deal with something, that's where we tend to lock in. And it's time for us to unlock and get back to who we really are and what it's really about, and that is allowing the flow of the active presence of love to move through every cell 24/7, 365. And instead of crystallizing this form, which blocks energy flow and creates pain, instead living as the liquid light bodies that we're designed to. You know, the physicists are saying that this so-called body is frozen light. And when we freeze things into it that don't belong, the thing just says ouch because those things don't belong. And so it's about changing that dynamic. And I'm glad that you're on the team up there in Lansing, Michigan, with support group and teaching the work to take it to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. That's awesome.
Well, it's exciting, Michael, to see more and more. It's kind of, it reminds me of when, you know, I don't know, a couple months ago when we were in a conversation and you said that, gosh, I feel like I'm finally getting it.
Yeah.
After 45 years or how long it's been for you. What I'm starting to see is I think there's more and more information that fits in to the whole the true forgiveness philosophy, the true forgiveness principles that we teach, and it's amazing because Dr. Sano's work, when I'm looking at it, it's coming from a medical perspective that's really saying the same things, and you translate it into the language you just said, and it's exactly what he's writing. But he's writing in it from a medical perspective, and it tells me that there is a wake up. There is a lot of distortion, and there is a lot of confusion and pain that's happening everywhere. But I think there's an equal and counter. It's all a part of it. It's just there's the other side that's the wake up happening. So I'm excited about that, and I see it in so many different areas. So I just wanted to share that.
Cool. Well, and it's exciting too that this is opening in more and more medical facilities. We're seeing physicians and working with physicians around the country that are taking this into their practices. I know that when we worked with Dr. Andraki out in Las Vegas and Pahrump, Nevada, he introduced us, as he was introducing us to 20 of his medical assistants, to teach them how to support people in doing the forgiveness process in their medical clinics. And there are 8 different medical clinics involved here. The introduction from Dr. Andraki was, you know, I can give pills to people all day long. It's not going to heal anything. This is the only thing I know that really heals. And it's just time for us to wake up and recognize who we are and start to function out of the awesome presence of love that we are all designed to be. And as we do that, everything around us changes. Everybody around us changes. And so, as I say, it's a delight to be on your team and to have you on our team in taking it to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, because that's what we're here for. So thank you, Rex.
You bet, Michael. Well, anybody else that has a What's that?
Do you have a schedule in front of you for your next workshop?
I sure do. Let me go back into my office here real quick. December 10th, I'm healing through relationships.
Awesome. So December 10th, and where's that going to be?
That will be at the Full Spectrum. It's a doctor's office, actually, which is interesting. And you just brought that up, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, that is happening. I've been introduced to a lady. I'm working with her privately. She's introducing me to the office. They rent the space, but they're also promoting me through their DOs. And they're Dr. Wendy Page Eccles and her husband, and then they have one other DO. And they have approximately 500 patients that run through their office a week. And
awesome.
Yes, and so I'm excited about that. So I've been introduced into that. So I'm doing a workshop there. And then with Fellowship for Today, on the 7th, January 7th, I'm doing a workshop called How to Keep Your Resolutions, which again comes back all to the same material. We just put different names on it so that we can actually introduce different, to different people. And then on 1/14, I am doing Awaken to the New Paradigm. And on 1/3, I'm doing a full workshop. I'm doing another workshop on Keep Your Resolutions. So 1/3 and 1/14, 1-7, excuse me. But I'm going to get that to you. It's a little confusing. I apologize. For those that are listening, I apologize because I've got it written them out of order. At any rate,
Rex, why don't you make sure we've got all those flyers? We'll make sure they're on the website so everybody will be able to access them. That would be awesome. And
great.
Also, we are in Naperville, Illinois this weekend. Actually, tonight. Wait a minute. Yes, starts tonight.
I just heard that. Michael, I just heard that a couple of days ago, and I thought, oh, shoot. I may have been able to zip down there. You're doing, what is the work that you're doing this weekend?
Well, it's not me, actually. There's a woman named Dayu who came and did our teachers training this summer, and she's been working with the work down in Florida, and she's on her way to, or actually she's up there now in Chicago and at Naperville at a place called the Ruha Center. When we were there a few weeks ago, we did a full week at the Ruha Center in Naperville, Illinois. Again, you can go to our website and the flyers are there. And so tonight she's doing a free purpose personal power and commitment workshop, and then tomorrow and Saturday she's doing 2 all-day sessions. So tonight the open workshop with a suggested donation of $12, and then she has a fee set up for Saturday and Sunday. So anybody that wants to go and play at in Naperville, Illinois, it would be awesome to hear that you've been there. And so if you'd like, Rex, I could text you her number. You could give her a call and maybe connect in. I don't know if it's something you have the space to get up there and say hello or.
Well, I don't. I was going to consider creating a space if you were going to be there. Yes, that was what I was thinking. I misheard. But now that you're clarifying, I did hear that. So I've been wanting to, see you in action. I haven't seen you for quite a while, so it's just enjoyable to reconnect. And, it's always great to see you and Jeannie as well. But I'm really pleased that someone's up there doing the work, and it's great. It's just fantastic.
Definitely. All right, Rex. Thanks. Your flyers are on the site, and so if we don't have any of them, maybe you want to just check and see. And if there are any that we don't have, you could make sure that we get them, and we'll put them on the site.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, blessings.
I'm going to sign off, and you bet.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the forgiveness process, and that's Rex Montague Bau-er, who's doing the work in Lansing, Michigan, not too far out of Chicago. We are going to be in St. Petersburg, Florida, starting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're doing a series of free workshops. And we may do, we've had some requests for a Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop on Saturday. So if we put together a location to do that, then we'll probably do Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing next Saturday in St. Petersburg, Florida, or somewhere in that area. So we'd be delighted if you came to join us. Other than that, Jeannie, do we have any questions, thoughts, answers, ideas in the website, in the chat room, or any other callers?
Actually, yes, there is another caller holding, but first there was some conversation going on in the chat room, and first one person wanted to know what is a worksheet, and I'm not sure if they asked that after you had already explained it, but if you're in the chat room, if you go to our website, which is www.whyagain.com, that's WHYAGAIN.com, and then on the right-hand side, click on Download Worksheets. And earlier in the show, Michael was explaining you can go, there's the worksheet itself, and then there's also 2 recorded radio shows where Michael actually walked someone through doing the worksheet. But it is a process of going in and changing your reality, changing your mind, so that the world you see is different. It is actually closer to actuality instead of just your reality.
Right.
Another question, though, it says, if the so-called devil was cast down from the heavens down to earth, then does that not make us a seed of him? And is that why he, and I'm assuming they mean Yeshua, died for our sins? And then they go on to say, without darkness there would not be light. So the devil had the whole universe, and then God said, let there be light.
Well, I'd have to disagree on a couple of points. Number one, whatever the story is about this casting down, we are not of that seed. You are of the seed made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and the Creator is love. That's your seed. Don't buy any other story, because every other story is a fraud to keep you in weakness so that you're controllable. You are made of God's stuff in the image and likeness of love. Hold a newborn child, you know exactly what you're made from and exactly what you're made for. The rest is a big, elaborate fraud, and you remember that's the whole definition of Satan, is the fraud. We've been misled. We've been tricked into giving up our human lives, and in giving up our human lives, we buy into this non-human state of hostility and fear. So my invitation to you would be to recognize the seed that you're really made of, and that is of the active presence of love. And as far as you can't recognize light without darkness, I think that's another fraud. You hold a newborn child, you don't have to have any knowledge of darkness, of hatred, of fear, of anger, of anguish, of terror, of hatred, of vengeance. You don't need any knowledge of that to know the awesome presence of active love. You don't need any of that other stuff. That's another con game of the trickster, of the deceiver, that, well, you got to have the darkness to have the light. No, you don't. That's just a fraud. That's just a simple trick. No, if you hold a newborn child with no knowledge of anything but, you will have an awesome direct experience of what a human life is. And that's what we're here to support every person in having, is that awesome experience. So that would be my thought on the subject.
They also asked, they said, why stay attached to the planet?
Pardon me?
They said, why stay attached to the planet? I'm not real sure.
I'm not sure what that means, but I don't think we need to be attached to know that we are in an awesome, fabulous place where we can create our lives and create awesome relationships in a world of peace. To me, there's no requirement, or it doesn't have anything to do with attachment. It's just who we are. And when we get who we are, then we get to play as human beings. And human beings are made of the stuff called love. There is no other human essence than that. Now, we've been tricked. You bring that awesome presence of love in, and you whip on it, and you beat on it, and you rage at it, and you tell it how stupid it is and how crazy it is. You can fill that mind with all kinds of lies, and that person will act as though those lies are true. But because they act as though those lies are true, doesn't make the lies true. It's just not so. And when we wake up to who we are, then we get to see that we are beings of love. That's all. And when you forgive everything unlike that, then the rest goes. The rest disappears. And we're here to support you in having the rest disappear. There's a neat little story that is ostensibly attributed, or is attributed to Einstein. And I'm just pulling it up on my computer. Let me share this with you. This may give you a shift in the mind. And this story is called "Did God Create Evil?" A university professor at a well-known institution of higher learning challenged his students with this question: Did God create everything that exists? A student bravely replied, "Yes, he did." "God created everything?" the professor asked in a question form. "Yes, sir, he certainly did," the student replied. The professor answered, "If God created everything, then God created evil, and since evil exists, and according to the principle that our works define who we are, then we can assume God is evil." The student became quite quiet and did not respond to the professor's hypothetical definition. The professor, quite pleased with himself, boasted to the students that he had proven once more that faith was a myth. Another student raised his hand and said, "May I ask a question, Professor?" "Of course," replied the professor. The student stood up and asked the professor, "Professor, does cold exist?" "Well, what kind of question is that? Of course it exists. Have you never been cold?" The other student snickered at the young man's question. The young man replied, "In fact, sir, cold does not exist. According to the laws of physics, what we consider cold is in reality the absence of heat. Every body or object is susceptible to study when it has or transmits energy, and heat is what makes a body or matter have or transmit energy. Absolute zero, minus 460 degrees Fahrenheit, is the total absence of heat, and all matter becomes inert or incapable of reaction at that temperature. Sir, cold does not exist. We have created this word to describe how we feel when we have no heat. The student continued, Professor, does darkness exist? The professor responded, well, of course it does. The student replied, once again, you are wrong, sir. Darkness does not exist either. Darkness is in reality the absence of light. Light we can study, but not darkness. In fact, we can use Newton's prism to break white light into many colors and study the various wavelengths of each color. You cannot measure darkness. A simple ray of light breaks into the world of darkness and illuminates it. How can you know how dark a certain space is? You measure the amount of light present. Isn't this correct? Darkness is a term used by man to describe what happens when there is no light present. Finally, the young man asked the professor, Sir, does evil exist? Now uncertain, the professor responded, of course, as I've already said. We see it every day. It's in the daily examples of man's inhumanity to man. It is in the multitudes of crimes and violence everywhere in the world. The manifestations are nothing but evil. To this the student replied, evil does not exist, sir, or at least it does not exist unto itself. Evil is simply the absence of love. It is just like darkness and cold, a word that man has created to describe the absence of love. The Creator did not create evil. Evil is the result of what happens when man does not have the presence of love in his heart. It is like cold that comes when there is no heat, and the darkness that comes when there is no light. The professor sat down. The young man's name, Albert Einstein. We've been tricked, folks. Evil is a lie. It is a lie. It is a fraud. And it is an absence of human life. Bring the human life in that you were given, and the darkness is dispelled. That's what this work is about. And the forgiveness process, as Jeannie said, it's all available. You can actually go download the book free on our website, www.whyagain.com. And if you have any comments or questions about that, we would love to hear your sweet voice. And our number is 646-200-4169. You've got a caller, Jeannie?
Yes,
Hello,
I do, and I do have a caller, and after I turn them on and we complete there's a conversation going on in the chat room that we will address. So you all in the chat room, if you'll just hang on a minute and give us some time. Area code 780, you're on the air.
Oh, hello, how's it going?
Hey, it's rocking. How about you?
Hey, pretty good. So thanks so much for doing the forgiveness thing. I experienced forgiveness back in 2003, and it sure changed my life too. So
who am I talking
my father. I'm actually calling from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, awesome. And your name is?
Jay.
Jay, it's a delight to meet you. It's always awesome to speak with fellow Canucks.
You're welcome. It's always interesting listening to your accent. So.
Hey.
Hey. Y'all or something like that. So.
Did you hear how the name of Canada actually came about? How they created that name?
No.
Well, it was back with one of the early prime ministers, and there was a bingo game, and he was pulling out the bingo balls, and he pulled out the first one, and he read it and said C, and everybody went A, D, A, and A became Canada. That's really how it happened. Anyway, Jay, how can we support you? What's your thought today?
Well, I remember what you're speaking about regarding forgiveness, and it sure rings true with me what you're saying regarding love is forgiveness is love, and that was my experience too. But I didn't have a manual or anything like that. I did the best thing that I could, and it's a really, really I don't know. It's really required. I think if you think of past lifetimes, lifetime after lifetime, we collect all this stuff, and then we open up the doors, and when you take the spiritual path, is that comes to a head, I guess you want to call it that. When forgiveness is the way to go, is to let go of stuff.
Absolutely, definitely. Have you tapped into the reality management worksheet process of forgiveness work that we're doing?
No, I have not. But like I said, I did my own forgiveness thing back in 2003, where I didn't have a lot of, a lot of helpers on that course. So I just took the best thing, and I did. But one thing is really necessary is to get yourself to a place of peace, and some sort of meditation will do that too. So I find that's very important.
Absolutely, definitely. So do you have a question or anything else to share with us?
No, I just wondered, it seems like the root of some of our forgiveness stuff is actually based, or our angers and issues and resentments are based on our families, how they brought us up. So how do you say to a person when you're teaching this stuff, because you do teach this stuff, is that your parents did the best that they could, no matter what, and they're thinking, well, there's got to be something that they could have done better, but they did the best that they could. So how do you teach that to people, that your parents did the best they could in raising you? And
well, actually, that's a good intellectual concept, but it doesn't eradicate the pain that people carry around from their experiences with what we call the power person. We do a workshop called Codependence, the Interdependence, where we address that whole issue. But what does change that dynamic is that when one forgives, that is, reaches inside themselves, forgiveness has nothing to do, if you've got pain around your parental relationships, it's got nothing to do with letting your parents off the hook. Forgiveness is how you go inside yourself and remove the rage, the fear, the pain, the hatred, the vengeance, the trauma, whatever it was. When you remove that, you end up in a human life. The only thing left is your humanness. And when your humanness shows up, all of a sudden, what you experience is compassion for these people who were in so much pain and trauma, they didn't know how to do any better. So it becomes, instead of just an intellectual concept, it becomes a direct experience of compassion for those people who are in their pain and their trauma. And if I don't have similar pain and trauma, then I can be in that space of compassion. And until I forgive that pain and trauma, I'm going to tend to join that person in their pain and think that they're the cause of my pain. So the forgiveness worksheet process is about going inside of ourselves and really collapsing the capacity for any form of pain or trauma in the process of reclaiming our human lives.
Interesting. Yeah, it's really, really required this time. I think this time is short, I think, for getting this stuff done in a very short period of time.
It's definitely time to wake up. Time to wake up.
Very interesting.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your call from Edmonton. Glad you're on the show. And if you jump on whyagain.com, you can download the book free. If you look on the link on the right hand side that says download worksheet, you'll find the worksheet, the instructions for it. You might want to check that out. That might add another dimension to what you're doing with your forgiveness work. And we'd be delighted for you to be back on the phone with us and share any other thoughts you have.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of the show. Take care. Blessings.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Katie.
Okay. The conversation going on in the chat room, there were some questions about different numbers. Different people, I guess, are getting into the numerology and what does 333 mean, what does 111 mean, and all that. And I had no idea. I thought maybe they were talking about 666, and so some conversation went around about that. And I explained the carbon-based memory, so you might want to explain that for those who are not in the chat room but just listening on the switchboard, and that forgiveness is going in and removing the frequencies from our carbon-based memory. And then the question came back, so then is the Bible just one big con? And I said, the scriptures were originally written in a physics language, Aramaic, and the translations weren't always accurate. Then another question came back in about UFOs, and then another one about why have I possibly died many times, but yet I never broke a bone? So it's like there's a lot of conversations going on in different directions.
Well, let's start off and let's address that thing about the scriptures being a con. Certainly, there are those who have used the scriptures to con people. Anytime you've got somebody who's talking about the active presence of love in terms of hostility and fear, you've got a con going on. But if you go back to the original Aramaic scriptures, when they talked about the mark of the beast, and the beast, or the that which goes against the presence of love, is that which is stored within us. And when Ginny was referring to the 666, this was physics and physiology. This wasn't theology. There's no con there. If you have this knowledge, your life is going to improve so immeasurably, and it's got nothing whatsoever to do with religious beliefs. When you look at if you ask a modern-day physiologist what your so-called physical body is made up of, they'll tell you that the base element in your structure is carbon. And if you look at the carbon atom, you'll find that there are 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. The number of the beast is 666. The beast is the hatred, the rage, the grief, the pain, the fear, the sadness, the guilt, the condemnation, the gossip, the slander, that tricks us into thinking that when our carbon-based memory generates hallucinations of pain and we pretend that that pain is outside of us, then we're tricked by the trickster, and the place where the work has to occur, and those who don't understand are always pointing us outward, and you'll notice keeping us in fear. The opposite is our approach, and our approach is claim your being, claim the presence of your awesome human life, love, and if there's something in your carbon-based memory system that can trick you into thinking that some form of hostility, fear, or pain is real or valuable, then you're trapped in the Antichrist. So the Antichrist has a number, 666, your own carbon-based memory system. This carbon-based device called the body mind unit is a multi-generational storage system, and you can teach it anything. You can take the most awesome presence of love as it comes into the world, and you can wail on, and you can beat on, and you can abuse that child to the point that that child thinks they're worth less than dirt. Their carbon-based memory system will absorb that energy and absorb that message, and a year, 2, 10, 50, 100 years later, they'll still be talking about how I'm worth less than dirt. But that's just information that's been stored in the carbon-based memory system. If the person who thinks they're less than dirt learns forgiveness, then they'll remove from their carbon-based memory system, from this multi-generational database, the reality and the belief that they're worth less than dirt. When they forgive that, and forgiveness is something that would be applied to the reality that I'm worth less than dirt. When I'm finished with that, the only thing left is going to be the awesome presence of my human life, and I get to experience who I am as a human. So those Aramaic scriptures, when you go back to the accurate translations, are so fabulously awesome at giving us a leg up. You can go story after story after story. One of my favorites is the story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years. Why did they wander for 40 years? What had to happen to get out of the desert and move into the promised land? Now, we're not talking about a physical desert here. We're talking about the unconscious. We're talking about people who never break free of their carbon-based memory systems and believe whatever garbage has been put into it and think it's true about them and anybody and everybody else that shows up. Now, what did they say had to happen in that ancient story? If you got the brain cells for it, here's what they said. In order to get out of the desert and go into the promised land, what is the promised land? That is your experience and living from the direct active presence of love, your truly created state. That's the promised land. What had to happen to get there? They said the old generation had to die off. Did that mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die? Absolutely not. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the old causes held in mind that never belonged in a human form in the first place have to be removed for us to go from the desert to the promised land. And we could go on and on and on. If you've got the brain cells for those stories, you'll remember the man named Yeshua said you had to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. There were those who would control others, and these stories were veiled so that those who controlled heard a story about, the desert and the promised land. It's like, it's okay, I'm king, I got control of these people, no problem. But underneath it, for those who had access to the secret teachings, they knew that the story of the desert and the promised land was the only reason the king was in control and was able to exact tribute from people was because these people lived in hostility or fear. And the hostility or fear had been being programmed into people for generations. And so as they were taught forgiveness, and the king will never teach you forgiveness. The king will teach you, let everybody else off the hook for what's happening inside of you, because as long as it's happening inside of you, you'll believe that it's true. So the king won't teach you how to go in and remove the hostilities and fear that keep you dumbed down. When you actually apply that, you reclaim this awesome presence of human life, which means the king is no longer in control. And so there's the real meaning. If you go through every story, you go to David and Goliath, and it sounds like there's this big giant, and he's so tough nobody can beat him, and this little kid with five smooth stones beats him up and kills him. Well, that's a nice external story. The king doesn't suspect there's anything in there that could help anybody to reclaim their power from the king. But Goliath is nothing but a symbol of the king. Goliath is nothing but a symbol of our own carbon-based memory and our non-being mind that seems so powerful that we can't get free from its hostilities and fears. David had 5 smooth stones. 5, if this was a physical battle, folks, think logically. If you were going out to do battle with somebody who was much bigger than you and the only thing you had were to pick up some stones, would you pick up smooth stones or nice jagged ones that would do as much damage as possible? Obviously, the smooth stones mean something else. It was a way of conveying to people and putting under the radar of the king and the people who controlled people, it was a way of conveying to them that there were 5 spiritual faculties with which you could take apart the Antichrist, the non-being self, the non-being mind, the carbon-based memory system, and those spiritual faculties empowered you to overcome and rid yourself of Goliath and have your true, intelligent, awesome human life, love, your created self show up instead of the non-being self. So each story has a deeper meaning, but the stories were told in a way that were veiled so that those who were in control and wanted to keep people in their purposely programmed hostilities and fears could no longer keep those people under control. Because if you got the tools, you're free. Remember this guy named Yeshua said, know the truth and the truth will set you free. Yeshua didn't say know somebody's dogma, know somebody's belief system, get a hold of somebody's fear-based trip, that'll free you. No, you got to know the truth. You got to know the underlying. And he said, his teaching was only for those who had the eyes to see and the ears to hear. His teaching was about giving people the liberty from the insane game of the non-being world and carbon-based memory to live as we were designed to live, that is, the awesome presence of love. And as far as the stuff on numerology and all, that's all an interesting subject for those who are interested in that. My experience has been, in many cases, that a lot of, things like psychic and numerology and all those things, while they can be useful, for many people it becomes a distraction from actually doing their work. So it's not a conversation I particularly get involved in. Everybody does their own thing. That's just not my thing. My thing is, do you have hostility and fear about anything? Then forget the numbers. Go to work and remove your hostility, fear, reclaim your human life, and then do what you're going to do. But do your work first. A lot of times phenomenology becomes a distraction from our true human beingness and what we're really capable of. So the idea is use the tools, understand, develop, and build the brain cells for the underlying truths in those ancient scriptures, and you'll see there's not a word of con in them. There's such awesome principle, awesome teaching, awesome truth that you will begin to know the truth. You will be free, and that's what we're here to support you in. Jeannie, you have another thought for us? We've only got a couple minutes left. Well, time flies when you're having fun.
We're actually down to a minute and a half. And no, I think everybody's just kind of listening, and there's still some more conversation going on, but no specific questions. There was some statements being made, and I didn't understand what they were saying, so I was trying to get clarity so I could present it to you. And I said, I don't follow you. And it kind of led from one thing to another there. So anyway. I'll let it go.
Okay, cool. Fabulous. Well, we're down to about 60 seconds, which means our time's just about done by the time we do our outro. So now that we know that we are here holding the space, bring a stranger with you tomorrow to the show. Let others know what we're doing in the way of support. Check out the website. If you're going to be in St. Petersburg this weekend, see us there. If you're going to be in Chicago, see Dayu there. If you're going to be in December in Lansing, catch Rex and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.